Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the June meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Board. May I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
If everybody could just silence their cell phones so they're not ringing, that would be great. And we will, first item on the agenda this evening is Beechwood Latch, 101 and 109 Hill Street. Earlier today, the applicant requested adjournment of this application. So
I'll make a motion to approve the request of the applicant to adjourn for all purposes the Beechwood Latch until the July 5th meeting.
For good cause
Second
shown.
that.
For cause shown?
For good cause
For
shown.
good cause shown.
all in,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing of 550 and 554 Hill Street has been adjourned. And it already has, we
I think we
adjourned it.
adjourned
So
at
there's-
the work session.
I did send a notice to all the people that I normally correspond, telling them it was adjourned.
So, and nobody's here except you. So, there we go. Margaret Fowler, 550 and 560 Wickapog Road, and 35 and 83 Fowler Street. This is the public hearing for that application.
The applicant Gilbert T. Planning and 28 South Main Street, Southampton, just handed up an affidavit of posting, an affidavit of mailing as required by the code. This should be a fairly brief presentation. This is an application for final approval for the two-lot subdivision of the Fowler property located on Wickapog Road, Fowler Street, in the R120 zoning district. As you know from the previous application, the purpose of it is to essentially to carve out the Fowler residence from the remainder of the Fowler farm. The lot itself to be created is about 5.67 zoning acres, so it's almost twice the size required by the code. And the remainder of the Fowler farm is about 30.38 zoning acres. As you know from the previous application, the sketch plan approval, there are no variances required. We've obtained Suffolk County Health Department approval for the division. The sketch plan for the division was approved, and it's valid through your August meeting. There have been no changes since the sketch plan was approved. And the only other thing I have to say is that I did see that following the work session that there was a memo from Nelson Pope and Borges in the file, and it noted quite a bit of what I've said. It also suggested that some of the things you might otherwise require in a subdivision, particularly activity on surrounding properties, that might be waived given the unique nature of this application. So that having been said, I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any concerns.
Does anybody on the board have any questions?
I have none.
Does anybody in the audience wish to comment on this application?
I would respectfully ask that the public hearing be closed.
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next application and public hearing is Drew Schuttinger, 157 White Street.
Jeffrey Gibbons, architect, for Mr. Steppinger. Good evening. This is for final approval on the landscape plan. And
It's a house on High Street.
we made some changes from our work session based on the neighbors requesting that we not plant evergreens in front of privet hedge. They wouldn't want their hedge to die. We've changed our material to privet as well, but it's only 6 feet tall. Their hedge is up to 22 feet tall. The other thing that we changed was along the driveway. It was pointed out to us that privet would probably not, on one side of the driveway, we have the neighbor's privet, which comes onto our property, but we're leaving it alone and not planting anything on that side. On the east side of the property, in the driveway area, it's a little shady in there, so we picked out Shipka skip laurel,
Skip Laura.
which grows to about 6 feet and has, in most climates, an evergreen, so that you won't have any see-through on the throughout the rest of the year. The rest of it is pretty much the same as it was. We're using Thuja arborvitaes. The type of privet we're using is Ligustrum ovellifolium, which was approved by Nelson Pope and Voorhees. All the plant material was approved by, as a matter of fact, run by them, and I was told it was all okay.
The posts at the end of the driveway, they're gonna have the two lights on top?
Yes.
What are those posts made of?
Wood. They're
So it's just gonna be like a 4
White
by 4,
post.
white,
Yeah. They're
6
gonna
by
be like
6 or
about
something?
14 by 14. They're gonna be 4 foot high, and they're gonna have 2 lights. This is a flag lot, and to just find the driveway, you need something to mark it off, because otherwise it just disappears into everybody else's hedge. So I don't think that's asking. And we're also we're gonna put the cobblestone out in the right-of-way, so the gravel doesn't get out into the street.
Jeff, the lights are going to have to approved by the ARB.
We're gonna meet with them next week, yeah. They wanted frosted.
Yeah, they'll try and dim it down a little bit. I mean, I think your suggestion about the demarcation of it is wise, but again, we're trying to keep things as dark as possible.
I understand, it's just that
Yeah,
you can miss this house
Yeah, that's-
very easily.
logical.
Kathy, your arborist had a chance to look at all the changes and
That's correct. Mara looked at it, Larry Rat, and made sure that nothing was an invasive species and that they would be suitable for this purpose.
I'm good with that.
does anyone in the audience have any comment or questions about the application? A motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye. And it's closed for decision?
I would actually suggest, I don't know, when is the ARB meeting?
It's a week from today.
So, do you want to try, do you think it's appropriate to do an approval conditioned upon ARB and written
I
approval?
think it's better let them take a full look at it because they have jurisdiction also.
We've already been there once. So, close for decision, which means 2, I can pick up the decision in 2, 3 a month.
Decision will be.
Right, it'll be at the next meeting.
So it will take
It would
another
be a
month.
July 5th
Okay,
decision.
thank you.
Subdivision review, Southampton Real Estate Partners LLC at 85 and 95 Down East Lane.
There's one here to the left.
Where'd he go?
The question is if this is, if this,
I mean, I know that we have to wait.
Can you go to the mic, Jeff? Thanks. This mic, right here. This mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if, waiting till July 5th, if it's written decision, do we have to wait till July 5th to find out if it's approved or not, or?
Well,
think the
I would
consensus
say
is for
that
approval.
Yeah, I think
a fair degree of confidence the board will approve it
Yeah.
as long as the ARB doesn't have a problem, or if they do, if you make the change in time, do what they want to do.
Okay.
We just can't approve it before they approve it.
Yeah, I mean, the plant material was changed based on the ARB meeting for the neighbors.
So, like I said, no one has an issue with it.
Okay.
We're just following protocol in terms of
All right.
certain things have to
Thank you.
happen before we can act. Kathy, what's going on with 85 and 95 Downey's Lane, Southampton Real Estate?
At your work session, this was scheduled for a public hearing on July 5th, so it is,
It's
Oh.
there's no action tonight.
Okay.
Oh, for them, all right. Those are those two flag lots at the end. going
Right.
into the End of the Hetty Creek.
So scheduled for a public
Two
hearing
end
already.
lots. Going into Hetty Creek.
The next item would be M&M East at 276 North Main Street.
That's guilt too.
It's the same situation.
And
Right.
that's the same
Scheduled for a
thing.
public hearing, yeah.
Also scheduled for public hearing July 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. July 5th, both of these
Moving right
are scheduled for
along
public
to the
hearings.
lot line modification for Donahue Silvets at
Public
42 and
hearing.
Yep,
32
both of
Post
them.
Crossing.
Good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Morris, Simpson and Bruin for the applicants. Based on the work session discussion and the advisory report from Nelson Pope, we did revise the maps. You should have, we submitted earlier this afternoon, 10 additional copies. And even since then, Kathy was helpful in getting us some further comments, but I believe you have maps now that are in compliance with the zoning code. We did modify, as I suggested, we increased the area of Lot 2 so that it now meets all the lot coverage and FAR requirements. But to do that, we
Lot two's a little one.
the little one, yes. And basically, that was shifted about 4.7 feet to the south to add that 382 square feet. So I believe you have everything you need now to schedule the public hearing.
And that maxes out that lot for what's on that lot now?
Lot coverage, we're well under. FAR, what we did was a broad calculation, first and second floor, and that doesn't exclude any of the things that could be excluded, so we're not totally maxed out, but there's some wiggle room there, but essentially the size of the lot, I think there isn't much room to do much more there.
So Wayne, the intention would be to have a condition or covenant that no variances be requested on that lot?
I think that would be appropriate.
Would involve a variance based upon the size, a ratio involving the size of the lot.
Sounds like a reasonable condition, but I'm assuming you'll have a hearing and we'll hear all
Yeah,
that, and then
yeah,
you'll
just want to
discuss that further.
keep that current in everybody's thoughts.
Yes.
And as far as a Part 1 EAF, is that forthcoming?
Yes. We just, literally, I got the maps today, so we'll
Okay.
finalize that and submit it.
The work session?
But we could go ahead with scheduling a public hearing, get public input.
Make a motion.
Make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the Donahue Silvets 42 and 32 Post Crossing for the July 5th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Site plan review, Peconic Land Trust.
The recommendation for the bond at $14,000. As you know, the board recommends a bond to the trustees. The board doesn't set the bond. So an affirmative vote on that motion will approve that decision, which is really an update of the previous decision, will be to set the bond at $14,000.
I'll move that.
Do we have it,
What?
the decision?
Yeah.
Because I don't have a copy.
It's the same thing as the other one, Steve. It just, no, that was on.
No, that was
Oh,
on
sorry.
AAME. AAME you gave me.
I didn't reprint all of them, Steve.
Okay.
It just
Oh, okay.
includes the $14,000. It said the decision was approved back in December.
Okay.
You gave it to,
No, that was AAMEE. This is different.
The motion is to approve our recommendation to the trustees to
Okay.
set the bond at $14,000.
Okay.
Doing what I think driveway cuts.
Okay. So moved.
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
the application of the Village of Southampton at 151 Windmill Lane for the ambulance barn.
Had circulated at the work session, we spoke about the revised Part 1, 2, and 3 environmental assessment form. And then I prepared a secret negative declaration to reflect the changes that, so no longer having the park property as part of the application.
Can we sort of discuss that a little bit, Kathy, for the public record, just so
Sure.
that the public understands what the modification
Yeah.
entails?
The application that was before the board previously included a lot line modification that essentially the ambulance would be constructed on the location that it's always been proposed, well, not always, but next to the police station on the lawn area. However, in order to meet health department density requirements, the idea was to actually move the lot line for the park property and incorporate that area into the park property and treat that as a separate lot. However, as soon as you make it one lot, it is parkland, and there could be some confusion or some alienation of parkland. So it was decided that it's better not to have that as an issue, or a potential issue, or potential confusion at all, and just move forward with the site plan application contingent upon health department approval, and that density would be transferred from village property, and just like we've done in other cases, actually. So there will be no change to the park property. There wouldn't have been change to the park property, but there will be no lot line modification at this point.
So you have prepared, or the village has presented a document discussing some of the questions that were raised by the counsel for Mr. John King.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it had addressed, the EAF had actually addressed certain points that were brought up regarding noise from the ambulance, from sirens, and traffic. What else?
Traffic.
Parkland is not an issue anymore. So essentially, we had referred to Mr. Hill's document on the traffic assessment, and it was his opinion that because there were a very limited number of trips that are generated by this proposed action, that it's not a significant increase in the number of trips on the roadway. And with the caveat that there is congestion at the intersection of North Sea Road and Windmill Lane, and that happens anyway. And that this action, as part of the action, the village board would go forward with making some improvements at that intersection, studying that, working on the timing, and also adding activators, called actuators, in the pavement on North Sea Road, and that will help with the flow, balancing the flow between the two roadways. And actually, there's Bowden Square as well. So,
Thank you.
as far as the noise goes, we've heard testimony from the ambulance drivers. They don't use the sirens unless they really need to. They use them to make sure that people know that they're there. And it's not a matter of course. When they're exiting the facility, if they need to use it, they will, but otherwise not. If they need to use it on Windmill Lane, they will.
Yeah.
Sir, I would, even though the public hearing is closed, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to address the document that was prepared by the village.
Kathy,
Yeah.
do you have a microphone down there?
So
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Robinson. I am here today as a consequence of last meeting where the public hearing, at least with respect to my client's objections, was reserved till today to account for the environmental impact statement that was filed, which is now subject to revision. I received the revised EAF at a public work session last Tuesday, late at night. I was not able to give it to my client as well as to my engineer until the next day. I discovered, after not hearing from him several days, I now want to give to the board his written comments as to some of the conditions, and I will be discussing them now, concerning the revised EAF. There are other matters that he was not able to look at, not only for the shortness of time, but as he indicates, he had a serious illness as of Thursday, and he was not able to look at the matter until really this week. And I was in constant contact with his office to see that the matter get moved along. I would like, before I even begin, if I could give, Mr. Chairman, with your consent, I'd like to give his comments to the revised EAF for file. If I may, if I can start to address it and to enumerate the issues that I believe are still outstanding with respect to the adequacy of the hard look that was taken and is being taken as of now in connection with the issuance of a negative declaration. One of the first things that's noted, and this is as a result of the revised EAF, is an issue of wastewater. It's noted that under the 3.99 acres, that it has a maximum sanitary flow of 1,197 gallons per day. The EAF states that 724.10 gallons per day is already dedicated for the police, leaving only 479.9 gallons per day available for the facility. Now, the plan, the EAF proposals, the plan by the applicant suggests that the facility will need 721.43 gallons per day. There, therefore, is a greater saturation in the area relative than what the system is capable of handling. I note that the the land itself, now comprises of a police department and a village court. It was which has its own separate demands. Now, in response, the revised EAF says that it's going to have well, it says really, there are two issues with this. It talks about, under the revised EAF, of having a density exchange. There's no particulars, we had no information regarding density exchange. Familiar with the concept, however, the concept of particularizing it in this case is just not presented. But the real issue is whether or not the groundwater issue takes into account 300 gallons per day for irrigation. As noted by Dr. Padone, the septic system is capable of being adversely affected by the irrigation system being used, that is the sprinkler system being used, on an already stressed area of the property, in that the property is currently used for police department usage. It's not capable of meeting anticipated sanitary flow designed to take into account the police department without borrowing from somewhere else, some other village property. But even under that circumstance, there's no information in the EAF that suggests or tells us whether or not a hard look was taken on how the impact on irrigation would be used. I note that with respect to the traffic and noise. Now, item 13 of the revised EAF says no, there will be no adverse traffic and noise. Transportation, I should say. I underscore the original objection that was made. The traffic study was prepared in March of this year, during a time when it was not the peak season, to determine maximum usage, which would be through the summer months from June through September. For a hard look to be taken under SECRA at the earliest possible practicable time, environmental issues are supposed to be ferreted out before moving forward to the next stage. We have a situation here where a traffic study was done in March of 2016, and there's no reason why that traffic study could not have been done today, sometime next week, particularly during the time of when the village is experiencing increased usage by visitors and other residents who come here during the summertime. The traffic impacts associated with that have not therefore been measured. The revised EAF suggests that that when the project is already up, now the Rubicon has been crossed, a closer look will be taken with respect to traffic mitigation measures, although we don't know what those traffic mitigations are because of a study that concludes that there's only a limited usage in the time of March. Under SECRA, where you had the ability to take a hard look on environmental issues such as transportation and traffic impacts, it ought to have been taken rather than waiting for the project to go up. It defeats the purpose of SECRA to have the facility up and then start tweaking the system. Under that scenario, a lot of things can go up before a hard look is taken on an environmental issue. By the way, with respect to the minimum uses on Windmill Lane, it's only a limited use. That's in some respects misleading in the following way. Under the existing location, where the existing ambulance facility is located, it's a given that only a certain percentage of those ambulances leave that facility and will go north and southbound on Windmill Lane. That's understandable. But by virtue of moving the facility to the proposed location, 100% of the ambulances will be now leaving the facility to go on to Windmill Lane. This is not something where the impact associated with the intensity of ambulance use is spread throughout the village. To the contrary, it's now been localized in one specific area, and the EAF does not adequately take that into account for purposes of assessing its traffic impact. The item number 18 of the the revised EAF talks about community character. Will community character be adversely affected? Now, to my surprise, the answer to no was given to that. When I was here last time, I indicated that the project was going to have an adverse impact on a parkland, which is dedicated for a public use and cannot be alienated unless certain procedures are followed. Now, I understand that that has now been revised, that the parkland itself, the boundary of the parkland is not going to change, but it still doesn't affect item number 18, which talks about community, the community setting. And the factors there ought to have been addressed, but meanwhile, the answer that was given last time is still given this time. The answer is no. Therefore, on community character, item number 18, no hard look was taken. I think I've outlined the matters. Dr. Perdone concludes that, and as do I, the board has not taken a hard look at the environmental issues associated with this application. We would like, given the short amount of time that we did have, and given Dr. Perdone's inability to have responded fully, although he did give some response, we would like to have him, he's willing to come here in person to address the matter at the next session of the board. And that concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Comments?
Well, as far as the septic flow goes, I think it was addressed in the EAF that the police station had 724, the new design flow is 721, and it's written in this form that the site plan approval will be conditioned upon the approval of the Suffolk County Health Department for sanitary, because they are going to require some density from another village property. So that, I think, is already in there, and I think that addresses that. The traffic study, I think everybody knows there's cars on that road. I don't think you need a traffic study to say that there's a street with bumper-to-bumper traffic. And I think the solution of, if there's traffic, they can change the light and empty out heading north is a valid solution. So I don't think there's a need to do a traffic study when you know that there's traffic on the road. So I'm okay with this. It's not a public hearing,
Yeah.
but both.
It's just for us to respond to these comments, really.
Okay, I mean, if you want, I can address a couple of them, or,
The public hearing's been closed.
okay.
Thanks. Alan?
Well, my views, council knows, and I believe the trustees know, it remains one that we have been asked by the trustees of the village as a request of theirs, and as a board, I guess among eligible boards, to look at their approval of moving the ambulance barn, it's called. And I still have, I guess, what would be a personal, not an institutional problem with the request coming to us in the first instance. The judgments that they make as a village board, I don't think are ones that are expertise or ones that we're asked to do routinely. Council has advised us that this happened before. I believe he was personally quite involved in it one other time when the Rogers Library was, let's say, the focus of the attention. So this is not the first time it's ever happened in the village. As the second time, the vernacular says, I think in the Pentagon, they would like us to take the trustees' decision and lift our leg over it, say it's going to be a good weapon system. Okay, if that's what we need to do, they made a number of judgments that I think I know they made. There are pluses and minuses in them. The people have come with a lot of the minuses. There are plenty of minuses that they're responding to, which start with Meeting House Lane, which is not much of a thoroughfare. This is a bigger thoroughfare. This particular road is capable of 4 vehicles in some places, 3 vehicles in others. It gets bigger and smaller. Already has several municipal-oriented facilities on it that will grow more intense as the village gets more intense. We've heard lots of opinions. They've talked about the need for the barn, since many of the wonderful volunteers no longer can live in the village but come in. And I guess the trustees made judgments relative to that trade-off between having volunteers provide this fabulous service that citizens of all rank want. That's a factor. I don't think that's our factor. I don't think it's for us to judge or get into that. I know it will affect the traffic depending on how fast people fail and where they're going. Everybody knows it. I don't think that's a judgment we can make that is adverse to the quality of life in the village. For us to take as a planning matter to say, put it anywhere you want, but not there, I don't think that burden could be fairly assigned to us in the first instance, and if it were, I don't think I could vote adversely saying, if you got to make a decision, and the trustees, who passed all the laws for us to try to respond to, and then asked us further a favor under those laws, I don't think it's our burden to be adverse to it. So my view is that regardless of what good citizens and thoughtful people think, whether they're worried about rear access through that park, which some of them were, which the police use, whether it's their children are about, that's a village matter for the trustees to take up, not us. I mean, every issue is put in front of us. None of them lead to saying it is adverse in the aggregate to the environmental situation in the village or to the planned use of the village that we're supposed to keep an eye on. Pluses and minuses, but I just think that if the village trustees want to do it, It's not our position to say they shouldn't.
Thank you.
End of a long speech,
Yeah.
but I've had a lot of comments come
I
to me.
think that the new EAF has satisfied the questions that were asked.
Yeah, in looking at the new EAF and in the comments in the, from the village, I find that many of the questions have been addressed with a hard look. The point about the sanitary system is directly addressed. Approval is conditioned upon receipt of approval from Suffolk County Department of Health. We're aware of that situation, and it's been considered and looked at, and it requires the Suffolk County Department of Health to say it's okay. So we have looked at that. As far as the traffic study goes, a traffic study, whether it's done in December or July, it's not going to change the additive impact that this ambulance barn will have on the traffic. This traffic study determined that that is an average of 4 calls a day. The volume is less than 1 every 3 minutes under the highest condition, and more likely 0 many hours of the day. The traffic generated will have no significant impact additive on Windmill Lane. And you've also got to take into account that it's subtracting from the traffic on Meeting House Lane. There's a lot of traffic out here, but this particular barn, it has been studied, and whether they did the study, as I said, in July or June, there's more traffic on the road at that time, but this facility is not adding more traffic. It's a minimal amount of increase for the benefit that is provided. The EAF addresses the issue of Windmill Lane being a actually better place than Meeting House Lane because it's wider, and because of the increase in traffic that is going to be provided at this facility, there'll be less problems for people trying to park and come to the Justice Court or the Police Department, which is a benefit. And as with regard to the Parkland and any negative effect on the character of the Parkland, I think there was some fairly telling testimony from the at the public hearing regarding when the dog park was proposed. The applicants for the park were directly addressed about whether they felt it was going to be an issue to have the police department and noise being generated. And they were so happy to get the park, they said, no, that's not going to be a problem. Don't worry about it. We're just glad to get a place to have the dogs go. So again, the function of this board is, in many cases, sometimes to balance the concerns of the entire community, and there needs to be a new ambulance barn. It's not big enough. And if this property does not impinge on the parkland anymore, there'll be a very minor number of sirens, which the ambulance drivers will minimize to the maximum of their ability. So I definitely feel that this board has taken the hard look that is required under SECRA. So that said, I'd like to ask the board if there's anything that Mr. Padone, if he were to come here, would do to change your opinions. If not, I'd like a motion to vote on the negative declaration of negative SECRA declaration.
So moved.
I will second it. It's a
Motion to approve the negative declaration.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we're approving a decision that's marginal, but I think on
We're not
balance,
approving this,
it
this
says
is purely
small.
on the SECRA,
This on the
It's small.
EAF.
the EAF.
It says small.
Yeah.
It's just, the word says small, and this is small enough that on balance, the EAF, it's environmentally satisfactory, not necessarily a wholly great decision. And I will
So that was a second?
seconded.
That's
A
a
lot of issues.
That was a second.
A lot of issues. I
So
will
all in favor of a negative declaration?
Aye.
Aye. Negative declaration is passed.
Okay, now we can make a motion to adjourn for
all
decision.
purposes. Adjourn for all purposes.
Okay. Make a motion the request of the applicant to adjourn for all purposes the Village of Southampton, 151 Windmill Lane, ambulance barn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The African American Museum of the East End.
In the file is a proposed resolution approving the application. That includes a negative declaration. Ordinarily, this would be a type 1 action because the property is itself
Oh, sorry.
a historic district, but given the prior considerations of the board to minimal impacts on historic districts, and being the fact that this is an improvement to the historic district, the resolution provides that that a type 1 action not be approved. This would ordinarily be a type 2 action excluded, so that the negative declaration accounts for this unique circumstances, grants the negative declaration as well as approving the application.
Can I have a motion to vote
I'll
on
move,
the decision?
I'll move that we approve it.
To approve the resolution.
To approve the resolution.
Move the
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This concludes the regular business. We have some minute approvals I'd like to do if we could, particularly for the April 4th and April 25th meeting and work session.
Make a motion to approve the for the minutes of the April 4th and April 25th, 2016 meetings.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next meeting will be June 27th at 5 PM. It will be a work session, followed by the regular scheduled July meeting, which has been moved from Monday, July 4th to Tuesday, July 5th at 5:30 PM. If there's no further business, can I have a motion to close this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.